Good morning. We are reading Forged by Fire by Sharon Draper, and we are on chapter 21. The chapter before Jordan came home, he was mad and he beat up both Gerald and his mom, Monique, a little bit. And so Gerald and Angel are trying to decide whether they should turn him in or not, and they decide to wait. Chapter 21. Jordan did not return until the next morning. Monique refused to smile at him this time. She rolled her eyes, she frowned at him, she refused even to speak. She turned the TV up as loud as it would go. She ignored him. He looked at Gerald but did not apologize. Jordan had bought donuts and milk along with fresh fruit and a dozen eggs. Angel unpacked the groceries quietly, except for the blaring of the TV coming from Monique's room. All was silent. Jordan knew that they had not called the police. He knew that they should have, and he understood why they didn't. He accepted the silent conversation, agreeing to their unspoken terms. They understood each other. The incident was not mentioned again. Jordan found another job sweeping up in a factory, but he hated it. He was tense, restless, and irritable. Gerald was surprised that he stayed around. Monique had many good days now. Gerald and Angel watered down her beer, and when she asked for her pills, they brought her multivitamins instead. Gerald had flushed the pills that Jordan brought her. He and Angel had cheered. Sorry. He and Angel had cheered as they circled down to the sewer where they belonged, all the pills they flushed. Monique never even noticed the switch. She was like a flower that had been battered by a storm but not quite destroyed. Gradually, she began to strengthen and bloom again. "Isn't it time for basketball, Gerald?" she asked one day. "Yeah," he answered with surprise. "We practice every day." "I remember," she replied foggily. "You play for the Lions." "No, Monique, but you're quiet. You're close. It's the Tigers, the Hazelwood Tigers." "Oh, yeah," she smiled vaguely. "Tigers." Gerald was a starter this basketball season, along with Robbie Washington and Andy Jackson. He felt good about himself for the first time in a long time. Rob's dad came to every game and cheered them on. Angel was dancing again, and Monique faded away less often, and Jordan, although always tense and irritable, left them alone. Gerald looked forward to his basketball games for the physical release, and when he could, he liked to hang with the boys on the team. He didn't have many friends, so Andy, Rob, and BJ meant a lot to him, although he never told them that. Angel stayed with a neighbor until Gerald got home, but he didn't like to stay out too late. He still did not trust Jordan. The game of November 7th went well. Gerald felt relaxed, although he was nowhere near the high scorer. He had played one of his best games. "Hey, Gerald, what's up, man?" asked Rob as he changed his shoes. "Nothing much. Cold-blooded game there, Rob. 27 points you be dealing out there." Gerald replied with real admiration. "What can I say? College scouts from all over the world knocking on my door, begging me to drive 6 new Cadillacs to their school, to instruct the women in the dorms on the finer points of, shall we say, scoring, and to teach skinny little farm boys what it is." Gerald laughed at Rob's usual foolishness. "Andy, I don't see why you hang with this big-headed fool, except maybe to learn some basketball. What you score tonight, 4?" "Hey, Gerald, I thought you was my man. You sound like the coach, and it was 6 points, thank you. I got more important things on my mind tonight," added Andy with fake indignity. "Yeah, maybe Keisha can teach him some basketball," teased Rob. "You want to go with us tonight, Gerald? We got some brew, and we just going to be chilling." "Nah, Rob, I got to be getting home to check on my little sister. My old man, you know how he is. Besides, who would want to be real with two dudes named after a couple of dead presidents anyway?" Gerald laughed as he packed up his gym bag. "Forget you, man. You seen BJ and Tyrone?" Rob asked. "Yeah, man, they waiting for you out by Andy's car." "Hey, Andy, when you going to get that raggedy red car of yours painted?" Rob yelled across the locker room. "When my old man gets tired of looking at it, I guess," Andy yelled back, laughing. "He said something about a reward if my grades get better, but you know how that is." "Yeah, man, parents be tripping. Still, at least you got a car, but don't get me talking about fathers. He's the reason why I got to raise out of here now anyway." "Where are y'all going?" Gerald asked. "No particular place. We just gonna chill." Andy grinned. "We might try to find a party, or we might just finish off them beers and let the party find us. Then I'm heading over to Keisha's house, and then I'm taking these turkeys home." Don't let Keisha find out you've been drinking. You know she'll go off." "Not to worry, Gerald, my man, not to worry. I'm out of here. Peace." Gerald caught the first bus and was probably home before Andy and Rob had finished their first six-pack. Jordan was still at work, so Gerald got Angel from next door and fixed them both a couple of Aunt Queen's scramburglers. They were watching the late news when the phone rang. "Hey, Gerald, this is Keisha. Have you seen Andy?" "Nah, I went home right after the game. But Andy and Rob, and I think Tyrone and BJ too, they left together in Andy's car. Andy said he was coming by your house after he took those clowns home. He ain't there yet?" "Nah, well, if he calls you, tell him to get in touch with me right away." "Hey, you haven't heard anything about any accidents, have you?" Why is it the first thing a girl thinks about if her boyfriend is late is that he's been in an accident? I bet he's in the back seat of his car, kissing all over some real sexy woman. All you fellas are alike. You're worthless. Call me if you hear anything, okay? Sure, later. Gerald knew that Andy, Rob, and Tyrone were planning to drink tonight after the game. Keisha's call had made him a little worried. Andy was silly, but he wasn't stupid. Besides, they were only 17. I mean, what could possibly happen? Gerald sat next to the phone, thinking about how things had gradually changed since last year. Sure, Andy was still silly, making yo-yo grades. Rob was still the best player on the team. Tyrone spent most of his time with Rhonda, and BJ was still short. But now Andy drove to school every day. Gerald thought it was odd that of the four of them, Andy, who had the worst grades, was the only one who had been given a car by his folks. Andy's parents rarely came to their games, but Andy always had plenty of money to spend on food, on the latest CDs, and on beer. Most of the boys, all except BJ, had started drinking at parties, after games, after school. Beer was easy to get and felt better than soda pop on a Saturday night. Even Gerald, who had seen up and close the awful things that a drunken man can do, would split a six-pack with Andy and Rob. It made him feel strong and in charge of his life. He was tired of being scared, depressed, and worried all the same. The beer made him forget. He liked that. Rob's dad didn't know, and Andy's dad didn't notice, so splitting a few beers after a game had become routine. They can handle it, Gerald thought. They probably just found a new place to party tonight. Girls just worry too much. But when he didn't hear anything more after an hour, he called Keisha back. Her dad's answer machine picked up. BJ's line was busy. So was Andy's. There was no answer at Rob's house, so finally he reached Rhonda. Hey, Rhonda, what's up? Keisha called me looking for Andy. You seen him? No, Gerald. Didn't anybody call you? There was an accident. Rob's dead. Andy ran into the wall. There was an explosion. They all got out except for Rob. Rob's dead. I can't deal with this. I feel like I'm going to explode. Gerald hung up the phone. He sat down in a heap on the floor. He was too stunned even to cry. He was sitting there shaking when Angel walked into the room. What's wrong, Gerald? She asked gently. Gerald could barely breathe. All of the pain of the past crowded in on him. Aunt Queen's death, Monique's accident, Jordan's abuses. He sobbed finally with huge burning explosions of pain, and he wept for several minutes. Angel sat next to him, feeling his sorrow and understanding his grief. Okay, I want to stop for a second. That does happen a lot, when you have not really taken time or you haven't had time maybe because life moves so quickly on. And he didn't really have time to mourn Aunt Queen's death. He was just a kid, and then he's thrown into a situation that was not a good situation with people he didn't even know. And, even though that may be his blood relation, it doesn't matter. He doesn't feel safe there and secure. And so when this triggers, like this death happens, then it triggers all those emotions to open up from other bad things that you haven't dealt with. It doesn't even matter if it's like a bad thing that happens. Anytime that you have extreme emotion, it could even be laughter, that suddenly you just feel like you want to cry or you're really sad. That's because there's a lot of stuff that we repress, that we push down and hide away because it's hard to deal with, or we don't have time to deal with it, or it's just too hard for us to. So all that stuff starts coming back. It could have been me. They wanted me to come with them tonight, but I didn't. And now Rob's dead. It could have been me. It could have been me. I think that's also what young people always think, is they relate it to the potential that, we think we're invincible when we're young. We don't think that anything bad like that's going to happen to us. And suddenly he realizes it could have been him. Angel's tears dripped softly onto the cold wooden floor. Not Robbie. Oh, please, not Robbie. Gerald couldn't help her this time. His own grief threatened to strangle him himself. Robbie can't be dead. Robbie can't be dead. Gerald repeated wordlessly to himself. Not Robbie. Not cool, silly, fun-loving Rob. Gerald felt weak and heavy, and he felt like he couldn't breathe, like a stone was sitting on his chest with the bricks running through his veins. Nothing worked right or felt normal. He couldn't cry anymore. He could only hold his head between his arms to try and block the vision that slipped in anyway. The fire, the screams, the silence. Gerald suddenly shuddered. What about Rob's dad? I've been so busy trying to make this fit inside my head that I forgot all about Robbie's family. Oh my goodness, they must be ripped up. Gerald ran to the phone, punched the number with fear and ferocity. The pleasant voice of the answer machine that never had to feel sorrow or pain answered cheerfully. You have reached the Washington residence. Please leave your number and have a nice day. Gerald hung up in despair. He didn't think he could ever have another nice day as long as he lived. Angel, I got to go over there. Rob's dad was there for me. I got to go. Let me go with you. Kiara's going to need someone who knows how to cry, and that's one thing I know about. You got bus money? Yeah, let's go. Angel and Gerald walked from the bus stop in silence. It was late, well after midnight, and the stars sparkled faintly over the streetlight. Angel glanced up. How can the stars still shine, Gerald? I don't know. It seems like the world ought to stop or something. Like they ought to not show up tonight, at least. How can the world keep on going like nothing's happened? They walked up to Rob's driveway just as the Washingtons were pulling in. Kiara's door opened slowly, but she just sat there. Angel walked over to the car and offered her hand, and Kiara reached toward her hesitantly and touched Angel's trembling fingers. She got out then and collapsed in huge sobs in her friend's arms. Angel, standing under the shadow of Rob's basketball net on the garage door, glanced at the uncaring stars and waited until Kiara's storm was reduced to sniffles and sobs. Rob's mom walked unsteadily to the house, let the dog out, took the mail from the mailbox after finishing with the meaningless details of the moment, sat down on the front steps, shivering and helpless. Mr. Washington picked up Rob's basketball and held it in his hands, staring at its roundness, feeling the ridges and the lumps on it, softly repeating Rob's name. Robbie, Robbie, Robbie. Now, I'm sure he's thinking, my son touched this ball, like somehow you can connect because it's something they touched or they loved or they held, that's hard. That's harsh. Gerald walked over to him. He placed his hands on the older man's shoulder, just as Rob's dad had done for him on that day that now seemed so long ago. Mr. Washington trembled and touched Gerald's hand. His eyes said thanks, but his lips could not yet speak. Too many other words, thoughts were crowded in his mind that evening, and he went to his wife and he took her hand, and together they walked over to Kiara. The three of them glanced at the basketball net, and Rob's father let the ball drop with a dull thud onto the driveway. It rolled to Gerald's feet. Gerald picked it up slowly. Holding it seemed to help erase some of the confusion that clogged his mind. Can I hold on to this for a while? He asked hesitantly. Please do, answered Mr. Washington huskily. He would want. Rob's father finally wept. Mrs. Washington and Kiara took him into the house then. Mrs. Washington glanced back. I'm sorry, she said to Gerald. Did you and Angel want to stay over? Oh, no. We just came to be with you all for just a little bit. We got to get back home now. Just call us because we'll be around. Rob's mom smiled and then closed the door softly behind her. Gerald and Angel walked silently into the darkness, back into the darkness of their own home. Chapter 22. Robbie Washington's funeral was held on a Saturday. More than 500 teachers, students, parents, and friends attended. Andy, the driver of the car, sat bandaged and dazed in the third row. Gerald, consumed with grief, sat silently next to Andy, consumed with guilt. Pain is lonesome, thought Gerald as he watched all the kids at school caught up in their grief. You got to deal with it all alone. Gerald noticed with anger that neither of Andy's parents had come to the funeral. During the recessional, Rob's mother stopped for a moment on the third row. She glanced at Gerald with brief despair and moved on. She would not even look at Andy. After Rob's funeral, Gerald wanted to quit the basketball team. It was no longer any fun without Rob's silliness and Andy's teasing competition with Rob for points, for food, even for girls. Andy took Rob's death the hardest. He and Robbie had been so close, and he could not overcome feeling responsible for Rob's death. Although most of the kids at school were understanding, some of them who also had trouble with it, and Andy found the word killer taped to his locker one day. Coach Ripley thought that keeping the team together and finishing the season would help to save them all. Andy was made captain of the team in Rob's place, and Gerald knew that Andy was proud, but that he felt uncomfortable as well. Andy knew that he couldn't fill Rob's shoes. He wasn't sleeping well, and his grades, which were never very good, got even worse. His parents sent him to a psychologist for counseling, which seemed to help a bit, but Gerald could see how much he was hurting. Gerald knew about hurt. He lived with it all the time. His life from the moment his mother had abandoned him when he was 3, had been a series of disappointments and hardships, but he managed to keep his head above water most of the time, and whenever he felt like sinking, he had Angel to hold him up. But Rob's death, it was different. Rob was young and talented and had a bright future. He'd had 2 parents who adored him, not at all like the abusive Jordan and helpless Monique. Gerald couldn't understand why Rob was gone and he still lived. He started coming home late from games, walking the 5 miles instead of riding the bus. He felt like he couldn't breathe on the bus anymore. Walking helped him to think and to clear the confusion in his head. Entering the apartment around midnight, one night, Gerald was surprised to see Angel there with Jordan. What are you doing here? He growled at Jordan. I live here. Yeah, I always get Angel from Miss Martin's house, stated Gerald with suspicion. Miss Martin had to leave, Jordan replied. It's okay, Gerald, Angel added to reassure him. Jordan took me to get something to eat. Everything's fine. Gerald didn't like it, but he said nothing. He went to sleep exhausted and slept without dreaming. Angel woke Gerald the next morning with a surprise. It was Saturday, and she knew that he had 2 tournament games to play. So she had fixed him some lumpy grits and a piece of toast with cherry jelly, and he grinned at her. Why you being so nice? Because you've been funky blue since Rob died. I thought you needed some cheering up, Angel said. At 13, she was thin and reserved, but when she smiled, her eyes revealed a glow that she rarely displayed otherwise. Any problem with Jordan? Asked Gerald as he licked his fingers. Angel sighed. Her smile faded a bit. No, not at all. He's been polite and calm for weeks now. He spends a lot of time at the bar down the street. He doesn't even look at me anymore. I think that bad stuff's over. I think he's trying at least. Well, I still don't trust him. As soon as I graduate from high school, me and you are getting out of here. Where will we go? Angel asked with a little fear. And what about Mama? Maybe Monique has already left us, Gerald mused. But we can live somewhere far away from Jordan Sparks. Angel didn't see any way out. She glanced down with resignation. We're stuck here for a while, she said quietly. Maybe. How's your dancing going? She grinned again. Delicious. We have a spring show coming up. I think I'm going to get the lead. Will you come see me? Well, I may be busy. There's a rerun of a frisbee tournament that I may want to watch on TV. She took one of his pillows and popped him on his head. He grabbed the other pillow and they chased each other, screaming and laughing through the house. They didn't even notice when Jordan's door opened. What's all that foolishness? He yelled. Sorry, said Angel, suddenly quiet. Amazingly, Jordan smiled. No problem, he said. Just don't wake up the neighbors. Gerald and Angel looked at each other with disbelief. Jordan closed his door. Maybe I was right, said Angel with quiet hope, and Gerald said nothing. Gerald left for the basketball tournament, feeling better than he had in a long time. The sky was clear, the air was fresh and chilly. Angel had dance lessons, or he would have taken her with him. But she seemed relaxed and knew to go to Miss Martin's apartment after dance. Angel got home late in the afternoon, humming with excitement and happiness. She bounced up the stairs, her light steps barely touching them. She knocked on Miss Martin's door, but it was locked and no one answered. Puzzled but not concerned, Angel went to her own apartment. No one, not even Monique, was at home. Just the way she liked it. She got a couple of hot dogs out of the refrigerator and put them in a pot on the stove to boil. Waiting for the hot dog, she put in a cassette and turned the music up loud. She was dancing the steps of the lead part, practicing the part she knew that she'd get. She heard only the music, only the beautiful music. She did not hear Jordan enter the room. She smelled him before she heard him, before she saw him, and he had been drinking heavily. His eyes were red and glassy, his lips were parted, and his breath reeked with foul, sour fumes. Angel was more surprised than afraid. It had only been a few hours before that Jordan had actually been smiling. He was smiling once again, but it was a smile of the monster that lived within Jordan Sparks. Angel, who was starting to feel the danger of the situation, started to back toward the door. She wished she had run out when he'd first walked in, but she had stopped being wary, stopped being afraid. By losing her fear, she had lost her chance. Where's Mama? Angel asked warily. She ain't here. He walked toward her. Don't start, Jordan. Angel was beginning to feel dizzy. Jordan lurched forward and grabbed her arm. You think you're pretty cute, don't you? No, Jordan, just let me go. Let me fix you something to eat. I ain't hungry. I want some female companionship. I ain't even talked to him since your mama run like a fool in front of that car. So come here, he commanded. Let's talk. Angel's eyes, wide with fear, yanked free of his grip and ran screaming toward the door. Can't nobody hear you? Jordan snarled as he moved in the front of the door and locked it. It's just me and you. And he grabbed her again, both arms this time, and dragged her, kicking and screaming, toward her bedroom. You can't do this, she cried. I'm only 13, and I'm your daughter. How can you do this to me? Stop. You ain't my daughter, Jordan sneered as he tried to force her to the bed. You skinny little weakling. Your mama had lots of boyfriends. You ain't none of mine. The months of exercise and dance practice had made Angel a lot stronger than Jordan expected, but he still managed to have her under his power with little difficulty. Weeping and terrified, Angel begged him to leave her alone, and when he touched her face, she screamed again, and he slapped her. She shuddered with despair. In the kitchen, the pot of hot dogs, which had long since boiled out of water, was seething and shaking on top of the wild gas flames. The meat, crisp and split, ignited into a small flame, which found new fuel in the spots of grease upon the stove. Soon the whole stove was covered with hot flames that licked and devoured everything they touched. The apartment had no smoke alarm, so Jordan never even noticed the smoke or the smell. I think I'm going on to chapter 23. After the tournament, Gerald got off the bus feeling vaguely uneasy. He wished again that he could live someplace where graffiti didn't decorate every empty corner, where trees grew thick enough to get lost in. He glanced toward his building, standing tall and dark against the sky, puffs of thin gray smoke coming from the upstairs window. Smoke, thought Gerald. What's that? And he was running before he was even aware of it. As he rushed up the 6 flights of stairs, he remembered the taste of smoke in his mouth, the touch of the smoke-filled air that hit in his nose and lungs in the color of the bright orange heat. He thought back to that long ago day behind the couch of his mother's house, the fear, the flames, the sweet silent peace of the final sleep, and then he thought of Angel. He knew that the smoke was coming from his apartment. He knew that Angel was up there, and he knew that Jordan was with her. So he screamed, "Angel!" He could hear the sirens faintly in the distance, but his thoughts were only on Angel and the top of the stairs. When he reached the door, he pounded on it so hard his fists throbbed. "Angel," he shouted. "Angel," and he tried the other apartment on the floor. But the doors were either flung open or locked. Everyone had either fled and the fire or was out. Finding only silence and smoke, Gerald fumbled hastily for his keys. "Please don't let me be too late," he silently prayed. "Where's Jordan?" he wondered as he dropped the key. "And where's Monique? Is Angel in there alone?" Gerald found the key, turned the lock fiercely to the right. When the cool outside air from the hall rushed inside, the flames swelled and raged. Gerald panicked a moment as his memories of flames engulfed him. He wanted to run and hide behind his sofa and wait for Mama to come. But Mama will be here soon. No, Mama is downstairs. High again. Gone again. Gone again. No, he said fiercely as he thought of Angel, and he glanced toward the kitchen, which the flames were consuming with glee. He headed across the living room toward Angel's bedroom. Flames flickered around the edges of the floor. He knew he only had seconds. Where is Jordan? Gerald kept thinking. He opened Angel's door, expecting to find her huddled under the bed or screaming at the window, but instead what he saw made him forget the fire, forget the danger, forget the fears of the past. Angel lay on her bed, barely conscious. Jordan was walking slowly toward the foot of her bed. So intent was he that he didn't even notice Gerald. "Don't you touch her, you perverted bastard!" Jordan spun around amazed, lunged toward Gerald with his fists. "I should have killed you years ago," Jordan said with quiet ferocity. "You're the one that sent me to jail, and I ain't forgot that." The room stank of Jordan's suffocating cologne, stifling smoke and fear. "Don't you know the house is on fire, fool?" Gerald said, stepping back 2 paces. Jordan seemed to be suddenly aware of the heat, the smell of the flames, the fire in Gerald's eyes. Ignoring them for the moment, he lunged toward Gerald again and knocked him to the ground. Gerald's head hit the edge of Monique's TV. He saw fire as the pain stunned him for a moment. He didn't even notice the blood from the cut at first. The TV tottered for a moment, then plunged with a crash to the floor. The heavy iron television stand fell over seconds later, shattering the bedroom window. The cold air that rushed in gave Gerald a few breaths that he needed, but it also fueled the anger of the flames in the apartment and in Jordan's Sparks. "That's the last time you're ever going to touch me or Angel," Gerald swore through clenched teeth, and he jumped up and swung at Jordan fiercely, but missed. Gerald tried to dart out of the way of Jordan's kick, but he was not fast enough. And with the steel toe of his cowboy boots, Jordan kicked Gerald squarely on his chin. Gerald screamed in pain. He heard the bone crack, and he fell once again. Angel, coughing and dizzy, struggled to sit up as the smoke began to come in through the open door. Gerald glanced over at the helpless Angel, eased himself across the floor, and grabbed Jordan's leg. Jordan was stronger, but he was drunk and confused. Gerald no longer felt fear or pain, only anger over the past, for Aunt Queen's lost hugs, Angel's lost innocence, for Monique's dim weaknesses, and Andy's unbearable guilt, and for Rob's fiery destruction. All of that was focused into his final lunge at Jordan. He reached for Jordan's leg, and he pulled hard. Jordan stumbled, then fell with a crashing thud to the floor of the open door. He never even glanced back at Angel, who was conscious and crying. Gerald struggled to stand as he heard Angel sobbing faintly. He pulled himself up to the bed. Angel, almost hysterical, was sucking in huge gulps of smoke-filled air. As he reached her, she shuddered and then lay still. "Angel," he yelled, ignoring the pain in his leg and his head. He covered her with a blanket, lifted her gently from the bed. She felt light in his arms, like a spirit, he thought, as he shivered in spite of the heat. He could no longer see. He limped through the darkness and smoke toward the open door. The room began to spin as the darkness and the flames attacked Gerald. He wanted to hide behind the sofa. He wanted to let the flames take away all the pain forever, but he remembered Angel, and he dragged himself toward the door, which seemed so far away. As he approached the doorway, he could no longer remember which way to go. It was dark, thick smoke filled the top of the opening. Gerald coughed and stumbled. A large, hard object blocked the doorway. Gerald fell over it and rolled out of the door into the hallway. In spite of his confusion and pain, he still managed to hang on to Angel, and on the floor he discovered the air was just a bit clearer. Gerald wiped his stinging eyes and saw that the stairs were smoky, but not yet on fire. Staying close to the floor, he snaked himself down the first flight of stairs, gently dragging the limp, unconscious body of Angel with him. He stopped at the landing, gasping, heaving, barely able to breathe the thin, clear air near the floor. He heard thuds. He saw large black rubber boots. He heard voices. "Hey, get some oxygen up here. We found them." and he heard clicks. He had heard that sound before, the click of the high-heeled shoes on a wooden step going away, fading into the distance. But these clicks were close and then closer, and they were hard and demanding and attached to a voice, Monique's. "I told you my kids was in here. Hurry up," she demanded shrilly. "Do something. I think they're dead. Where's Jordan?" Monique screamed hysterically. Ma'am, let us do our job. We told you not to follow. Now, Max, get her out of here." Gerald grinned weakly just before he passed out. Monique. Just in time this time. Just in time. Chapter 24. Angel's eyelids fluttered, and then her eyes rolled in fear as she thrashed her arms wildly, pulling off the oxygen mask and screaming in terror. The paramedic held her arms gently and spoke softly. "It's going to be okay. Relax. You swallowed quite a bit of smoke up there." "Jordan, no. Fire," she whispered incoherently. "Oh, Gerald, make it stop. Make it stop. Where's Gerald?" she asked with sudden fear. "He's right here, right next to you. He saved your life, you know." Angel relaxed when she saw him. Gerald, with large bandages on his head and his leg and an oxygen mask on his face, grinned at her. "You look like something out of a monster movie," she croaked. Her voice was raspy from the smoke. "So what happened, Gerald?" "I'm not sure," Gerald said slowly. "I remember carrying you and falling, and Monique's shoes on the steps," he said, remembering. Monique peeked her head into the back of the ambulance. "And how are my babies?" "Ain't no babies here, Mama," Angel whispered with a weak smile. "I think we're going to be okay." Gerald frowned. "Monique, where's Jordan?" "He left us there to die in the fire. He had Angel. He was trying he tried to kill me." And Monique's smile faded. The paramedic and the police officer looked into the back of the ambulance. "Do you feel up to talking, son?" Gerald nodded. At the word son, he thought of Rob's dad, and he knew Mr. Washington was only a phone call away, and that made him feel better, relaxed, and safe. "There was another man in the apartment," the police officer said. "Was he a relative?" "He is no relation of mine," growled Gerald with hatred in his voice. "His name is Jordan Sparks. He claims to be Angel's father, but he's mean and hateful, and he's a child molester." "There, I said it, Monique. He tried to molest Angel, and he's dead," the officer cut in. "Dead?" "He died trying to get out of the apartment." Gerald thought back to that haze and the confusion of the fire, and he remembered stumbling and falling over something, or was it someone? "Where did you find him?" "He was lying right by the door," the officer said. "We think he slipped. He had on new boots with slick soles and steel toes," Gerald thought, "and he must have fallen trying to run out of the apartment." "Running out on you," Monique admitted slowly. "I think," Gerald said slowly, "that Jordan is the reason we're still alive. I fell over his body on the way out of the door, and that put us on the floor where the air was breathable, and it let me find the steps. And let us find you," the firefighter added. Monique began to weep. She wept not for Jordan, whose spark was finally snuffed out, but for all the flames of pain and hatred he had caused. "May I ride with them?" she asked the paramedic when she could speak again. He nodded. "Maybe you should ask them," he added, pointing to Gerald and Angel. Angel, whose face was covered with tears, held out her arms to her mother, and Gerald, relieved that they were alive and Jordan was not, smiled and nodded. As Monique climbed into the back of the ambulance, an orange ball of fur leaped up in front of her. "Tiger!" Angel smiled with relief. The cat snuggled close to her and glared at the paramedic, who just smiled and pretended not to see it. The siren screamed as they rode to the hospital. "How do you like the music I picked for our ride downtown?" Gerald teased Angel. "It's fine for the movie soundtrack, but I couldn't dance to it," and she smiled and drifted off to sleep. With the flames and fear behind them, Gerald and Angel rode together to the music and the sirens which had decorated their past and would forge their future. And then it talks about, that's the end of the book, but it has a place here that is the end, and it says, "For readers who would like further information or who need help, the following numbers are provided as a place to start." And it's a National Child Abuse Hotline at 1-800-422-4453 and a National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-7233. They are always 24 hours open and accessible. That's the end of the book. We'll talk about it tomorrow in our Google Meet. Thanks.